Response video to, it's going to be a series of videos. Anti-Bullshit-Man. Yes, he's written an extensive blog post. It's called Inmendham's Alphabet of Evaluational Transgression. Anyway, so I did chapter A, and probably should have to read it 7 or 8 times. I don't know. Yeah, okay, did it once, and I didn't really like it. It wasn't much fun. But whatever. So it's there's two ideas, okay? The idea that, okay, your existence is, you're a meat bag. You're a feeling producer, a value producer. Every living thing produces a value aura. You want to call it that? You probably slight me for that, nitpick me for that, because I used a horrid, religious concept. Sort of religious. Anyway, so yes, you create value by experiencing. Okay, it creates value in the sense that you can have experiences that are advancements of your condition and experiences that are degrades in your condition. From some point where one would say this is a good state to be in and that would be a bad state to be in. We sort of definitely know what's on one side of the fence and what's on the other side of the fence in terms of sensations worth doing again and sensations better never to have been, kind of thing. For sure, I think. And all sentient things are having these experiences, producing this value. And they're all doing it on a game board where we are intimately connected to each other's welfare. We all can do things that create circumstances. We all shit in each other's water, or we can all fuck each other over in different ways. We can harm each other, do things that can negatively or positively affect the other sentiences you're living with. So this is our circumstance. Now we're also dealing with the fact that we're, just like we're an individual living in a community of sentient biology, a biosphere covering the entire earth, and we do influence it by the way we vote and everything we say and everything we do, we affect it. Like in the story It's a Wonderful Life, we do have a life connected to the lives of other people, and we will benefit or not benefit the net balance of the communities they live in, so to speak. And just like that, we have a similar relationship as the present individuals living now to the relationship to the future individuals that will live. We will be deciding what will be possible in their world. In fact, we will be deciding every single thing that happens to them, just like the generations before us decided everything that's going to happen to us. It is a cause and effect universe, and determinism will be realized. But in a very real way, these conversations we have and what kind of arguments we have and how they're persuasive and convincing, all that stuff still happens, even though it's inevitable. But it still has to happen as part of the process. And through that process, we will decide the fate of that bigger game board, that bigger world of the future. The future is huge, potentially, compared to our tiny little square, just like our tiny little sentience is tiny compared to the mass of biology with a beating heart on Earth right now. There's lots of beating hearts on Earth right now. And I am, in a practical way, affecting them. And I'm affecting the future. And somehow that concept is obnoxious in some vague way. Being as a prime directive of awareness. Let's just use some Star Trek language. as a prime directive of of contextual understanding, not as something that there's no exceptions to, in the sense that, you know, we're going to write it in some sort of black and white ink, black ink on white paper, but as a general principle, 99.999% of the time, the fact is, this is the reality. There's nothing, there's no way you can escape net impact value. The other vending machines are producing, the other vending machine is probably a bad example. We need an analogy for something that produces something of value, and nothing does that just generically. But they're all equal in this capacity. It's like a dollar bill. They're all dollar bills. And if one of the dollar bills, if the dollar bills could get a virus or something and die, you wouldn't want the one that has the virus to spread the virus, kind of thing. You wouldn't want $1 bill to degrade the other dollar bills, to ruin their value. Or gold. You wouldn't want the gold to eat the other gold. That would be bad for the potential of the gold to be ruined. Diamonds, whatever you want to come up with. This value component, that the idea is to maximize, theoretically, the production of this good stuff and minimize the price you pay for it. So it's like a fleet of cars, and if one car is consuming a huge amount of gasoline and producing no miles to the gallon, it ruins the average for the fleet. That's the obligation, and the sensible obligation that any logical intelligence is going to draw is that the idea is to improve the entire fleet, to make the fleet as productive as possible. I believe I've used the analogy of horses and carrots, and the idea is to distribute the carrots perfectly, to try to distribute them perfectly, so you get the most amount of work, and you have to use the whip the least. That would be the ideal, is to create just enough incentives with those carrots to get as much work as possible out of the horses with the least amount of harm and unpleasantness and injury and all of that crap. So you want the horses just aggressive enough, but not too aggressive in chasing their carrots. And it's just an efficiency equation, and that's the equation we exist in. This isn't about how happy you are. It's about how happy the life on earth is. And that's what your brain should acknowledge, that your body is just one car in the fleet. And it's not about you managing your car. It's about you understanding the need of the whole fleet to be made productive. It's kind of, you go back to some like classroom project where you had to work as a group, and the idea would be not to just do your part, but to do whatever you had to do to get other people to do their part. It's part of the equation. It has to be part of the equation, because you're not going to be able to beat the other groups if you don't maximize group function. It's just such an obvious efficiency equation. I just don't know how else to put it. That there's this it's like starting forest fires or something. It's just there's this condition of value to be either broken or preserved from being broken, you could say. And it's in nobody's interest to let something loose that's going to break all the precious stuff. And there's no personal right to break more than you preserve. And that's the whole idea, is you're trying to be productive. So that's the word, productive. He didn't say the word productive in this first chapter because it's the A chapter, but I think it's sort of important. Yeah, really important. So he played little digs and little shots at this, the metaphor I've used of janitor. And I've used the metaphor of you have to be a janitor in the world in the sense of this is about maintenance. It's about fixing things. It's about maximizing efficiency and productivity and minimizing the possibility of a meltdown. It's like maintenance men at the nuclear power plant. So when I was saying janitor, I wasn't meaning just you sweep up stuff. I was meaning janitor in the full sense of janitor, in that you maintain the boiler and you maintain the function of the building and you fix the leaks on the roof and you do all this little kind of stuff. I mean, it's not just some sort of sweeping duties. Alright, and so he argues that the conflict here is there's a conflict between that philosophy, that utilitarianism, and some other substantial directive. We won't say it's the prime directive, but it's just a high directive, that the way you get there is through rationally, logically honest communication and statements and some devotion to the truth, that you're not likely to be productive, you're not likely to improve the efficiency of your car if you pour milk into the gas tank, if you do things that are foreign to the facts, foreign to the understanding of the function, true understanding of the function, honest understanding of the mechanism, car, and what it's really feeding on, and how its psychology owns it. So how these little flaws in its engine, how you can do a little tune-up, and you can, open the gap on the plugs a little, get a little more performance out of it. And this knowledge is essential to being able to be productive, to make us into efficient machines, and to make our fleet efficient to the future. We have to be 99.99% of the time, honesty is going to be the best policy. And living lies and fables and fantasies aren't going to get the job done most of the time. It might make somebody who is a menace harmless if you can get them to play hopscotch or something. If you can distract them with bullshit and nonsense and keep them out of the way, it wouldn't be a violation of the directive that when performance requires it, lies are okay. But the argument is very rarely is it going to be in your interest to suggest that lies are the answer, or the indignity of dishonesty or delusion would be the solution. So that's not going to be argued for. And he used as an example something about people being happy or retarded or something. And again, that's outside the realm of the argument. Okay, whether people are happy or not doesn't have much to do with the overall subject of whether they function in existing. We're talking about getting from a point where there are people existing to a point where we no longer have them at jeopardy. And if you make some happy retards in between, that's okay. But if your plan is, there's nothing in my plan that says it's okay to make cars that spin around in circles, don't get into accidents, don't crash, don't break down, but they just spin around in circles. That's not what I'm advocating. So I think using an analogy where you pretend I see some value in perpetuating existence in a retarded state, in a state where you actually don't perform any function, that there's any point in that. The whole point of existing now is to prevent existence in the future. And that's sort of the irony, that we have to aggressively exist in a very aggressive manner in doing the right thing now. And we have to live really hard. We have to really live, and live completely, to accomplish the task of unraveling the necessity for anything to live. The necessity to have fleets that have to be measured in terms of their performance and their impact. The whole point is to quit impacting. to quit having the necessity of reducing harm by eliminating harm. So I don't think an analogy where you paint me as some draconian driver of the dumb horses, whipper of the horses in some, happy parade, some pageant, has anything to do with anything I'm advocating. I don't wish to have management control over precious commodities that aren't doing anything productive. There's no point in them existing then. If you're either fixing the problem or there's no problem. That's all we really have here. The point is that life is broken. It will never produce fairness and consent, and those are vital elements. And so it's fundamentally broken. You can't fix it. Okay, all you can do is fix the problem of its perpetuation. All you can do is fix the problem of getting into the car to turn the key off, to stop the flow of the harm filth. But I'm not advocating for some boat ride in the cesspool. I don't want to manage boat rides in the cesspool. So if the agenda isn't fixing the whole problem, managing the extent of the mess is okay, but there's different rules for managing a mess and fixing a mess. So yeah, I think they're probably not that different. I mean, the point is until you have a sustainable, playable game, the prime directive has to be either end the game or make the game playable by intelligence. And until you do one of those two things, yes, the only directive is what's your total impact, your net influence, which I think is always going to be important. And I think the only way to get there is through some mechanism of honesty. Honesty for the sake of honesty is nice, but it just doesn't mean anything. It just doesn't. So yeah, I think you are just doing this stoic thing, and I think you're doing this I think you're just nitpicking is what you're doing. Yeah, so we'll see what chapter 2 brings. Yeah, because I really just don't get, frankly, I just use some, derogatory and insulting rhetoric, but I don't really think you said anything, and I don't think you directly quoted me in context, and I don't think I've ever said there's some sort of absolute devotion to honesty, beyond the fact that the end game is always the end game. I mean, I can honestly believe something, invest in it as an honest function. I can believe there's no risk of this or no risk. I can believe I washed my hands sufficiently going into the surgery. That doesn't change the fact that if I didn't, I missed something, and the patient dies, that I fucked up, that I blew it. I mean, it really just doesn't change the facts. Failures, whether you have good intentions, really don't matter. Failure's failure, and winning is winning. And it's going to be measured in this rawest, most source value commodity. There's no other better measure. It's the most rock solid measure, is this end result. And it just isn't about your intentions. There's just the end result. There's just, either the nuclear power plant melts down or doesn't melt down. How it melts down or doesn't melt down just doesn't matter. It just matters that, yes, you're going to be a failure if somehow you blow it, if you fuck up, even if your intentions are good. Even, you're running to go hit this, put the extra battery in or something, and you trip over the wire that breaks the other pump, and now it melts down or something. It just doesn't matter. Intentions are nice, but it just doesn't undo the fact that the bottom line is you didn't have a wonderful life because you made the nuclear power plant melt down, you dumb fuck. Just the way it works out. Sorry. I mean, how many times have people loved somebody and ruined their life doing it? I mean, this happens all the time. People, it's like Lenny of Mice and Men. No malicious intent whatsoever, but yeah, he just broke things. Sometimes we make a mistake. Sometimes we fuck up. Sometimes we miscalculate. It just doesn't, this stoic good intention crap just doesn't mean anything. In the end, you have to win. But I'm certainly saying that you're more likely to win 99.99% of the time going with something honest and honorable than you are going with something dishonest and sneaky. So that's the truth, I think. I don't even know if that's what you're arguing. Like I said, your argument was a little... I mean, in a sense, you're trying to call me some sort of intellectually dishonest or hypocritical or inconsistent individual, and I don't think you did that with anything direct. You just sort of implied it with a bunch of vague stuff, and that's your prerogative, but that's all I got from Chapter A. Anyway, we'll see how it goes. So, 20 more videos to come. Sorry, this went on a bit, but at least we got the premise done. Sort of.